Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Autumn Sphere, modern progressive atmospheric experimental black metal. Schammasch, Ego Sum Omega. And so I had to look a little bit of this up. I don't know what Schammasch is. I couldn't find anything for that, but it is a palindrome, which is neat. Ego Sum Omega means I am the Omega, which could be interpreted as I am the end. So, let's dive into this and see what Schammasch is bringing to the table today. Yeah, really interesting phrasing here. I think we are doing 16 beats. But they're in irregular pulses in between the 16 beats, the way that they're grouped up. Really menacing sounds. I can understand this dude. Not everything, but I picked up some words. There's a lot of clarity to the growling. Yeah, this left hand stuff is just wild. Love the tom work going on in the back. Even though the vocals are in the mix, the separation of the guitars gives a lot of space for the vocals to exist in the middle. And that clarity really helps. That right hand cymbal it's very present. Now that I've noticed it, I can't unnotice it. Yeah, I love how the tom work is creating a bit of diversity between most of the drumming we had heard prior to that point. A little bit of atmosphere here. Nice harmony on the guitar line. Shift into that triplet feel on the cymbals works really well against the guitar. I like the 3 guitar lines here. The snare is very low in this part. The bass is too. Yes, give me this. Oh, really interesting atmospheric stuff. Yeah, I wanted to hear those horns though. So yeah, I mean, there is some elements to this that kind of push outside of um, standard black metal practices, and that's where some of the experimental stuff comes in. But 90% of this it's black metal. It's a lot of 16th note playing. It's a lot of really quick alternating snare and bass. It's growl. Interestingly, it's growling. Well, I guess we are hearing more growl. I still have that stereotypical black metal nasally harsh in my mind when I think of black metal, but I mean, there is more and more black metal that I'm hearing. I'm being introduced to with growl, so I guess it's not that out of place. A majority of these sections, if you take away the constant attacks on the guitars and you only play an attack when you change notes, you're going to end up with a lot of whole notes, half notes, and a couple of quarter note areas. It is written in a way that reminds me of string quartets, more simplistic ones that focus more on leaning into atmospheric ideas rather than layering concepts, really leaning into longer held out notes and exploring the relationships between notes. Black metal just, I think one of my favorite things to do when I listen to black metal is just to stop imagining all the picking on the guitars and just hear these long notes. Ba, 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 ba ba. Like a lot of this stuff in black metal is just these four notes or like six note ideas, but it sounds metal because they're constant. It's 16th notes constantly, right? You're holding this note out for a second and a half, but you're playing that note 50 times. So that's what black metal often is in my mind. Is it's playing really slow music, playing it fast. Slow moving music and playing it fast. Um, there are sections like the ending where we embellish what the guitars are doing with these horns, which I think is very cool, especially when we take into consideration this album art, which has an angel with a horn. Presumably, we also have the title of the track, which is I Am the Omega, which ties into, especially in the context of that. We have Ego Sum Alpha. Man, what is the Latin word for and? Anyways, the idea of I am the Alpha and the Omega, which is, the Christian God. Um, and we have Christian imagery on the artwork. So having these very triumphant, large horns, indiscriminate horns too. I didn't really hear tubas or sousaphones or trumpets or trombones. I just kind of heard this generic low end horn sound. So it just kind of evokes to me this imagery of Christian imagery. Um, so it's very cool to have those on the outsides of this. Well, let's get to the big point here. What kind of separates them from other black metal outfits is the atmosphere. From the very start, I often when we get to black metal music, I'll mention that it sounds cold to me. I compare it to static. I get like a very black and white color on it. It just feels dispassionate in a lot of ways. And all that comes down to production, not just what the producer does, but how they craft their sound. Because, like a lot of that black metal, compared to this band or this song specifically, what they're playing isn't different. Again, it's a lot of playing 16th notes on a single note and having your drummer make a lot of sounds, right? Sometimes that's just blast beats, sometimes it's alternating snare and bass, but again, more 16th notes, more attacks, and harsh vocals on top of it. What they're playing isn't different. How it sounds is the guitar tones, the bass tones, the vocal style, and then the production on top of that, what your engineer brings to the table. This does not feel like black metal to me. This evokes very different visuals, very different colors, very different vibes. And it's because the production isn't as flat as a lot of black metal is. In fact, there's even a warmth to it all. I don't know how to make warmth. As I've mentioned many times, I'm not a producer, I'm learning, but warmth to me is something that an instrument brings to a table. If you want a warmer brass sound, you use copper. If you want a colder brass sound, you use silver, right? You buy the instrument that fits the sound that you want. And if you want your instruments to sound colder or warmer, you have to pick the right instruments for the line. Production is this entire other thing where you can meld sounds. It's like, it's so far beyond what I'm used to. Um, So it's really cool here then to hear this band play what I consider typically colder music or music that utilizes colder production and have this warmth to it. And some of it's going to be from the horns sitting behind it and coming in starting the song with that vibe definitely gives it that feeling. But even when we removed them and we went for more of uh the thinner sound, didn't fill out the sound sphere as much, it still had this warmth to it. And there's just got to be something production wise that brings it. This feels not like sitting in the woods during a winter storm, which is what a lot of imagery of other black metal bands presents to me, but like being in the middle of a war. And I don't know how much of it is the album art and how much of it is the music, but I can just imagine sitting in a field, blood soaked, with a red sky and just combat everywhere. That's what this song sounds like to me. And it comes down to the production. It comes down to having these horns on the outside. It comes down to their guitar tones. I'd even say some of it comes down to the fact that I could pick up words. I don't know what he was saying. The language used was very esoteric with a huge vocabulary. Plus, I'm a visual guy, so I really understand, especially words, better when I read them than when I hear them. Um, but yeah, that was cool too. Like, this also ties into production, but I assume there's also going to be some performative aspect into it, how he enunciates words, how he creates sounds. But there were several points in here that I could hear each, and it wasn't like I grabbed a syllable or a word. I was hearing complete lines. And some of it, I think, is the guitars being spaced so far out. Well, actually, that's a big thing. They are spaced out. There is not this compression to it. This is hi-fi black metal. They wanted clarity, and they got it. The guitars are still fuzzy. They're still aggressive. They still got that metal bite. Our vocals are still growling. But everything's clear. I can hear the notes out of our guitars. I can hear syllables out of our vocalist. I still don't know that I'm ever going to get into black metal, but this would be a place for me to start. Sonically, this works for me. I can hear everything. It just kind of clicked with me. I can hear everything on this. Well, I can't. I can't. There is one instrument that is very weird. I pointed it out right at the end. I don't know how often this was present. In our very last blast beat section, where we faded out to just have the horns. And oh, we got to talk about the ending too. That was interesting storytelling. The snare I could barely hear. It was like a muffled snare. It was like listening to somebody play snare through thick walls, where you can kind of get the a light thud out of the sound, but you're not really getting the crack or the reverberance or anything. The bass kick, well, I don't know. I'm trying. I heard it, but I didn't hear it. I'm trying to figure out how much of that was my brain injecting a bass kick in there because I know that it fits, that there was a bass kick being played between the snares, but it was really hard to hear. So the drums are very muffled and muddy, and I don't know how often that was throughout the track. I would need to give it a second listen. It wasn't something I heard till the end, but it was also a section that we had heard several times, and I can't believe I didn't pick up on that prior. So I don't know what's going on there, but that was a weird thing I noticed. The cymbals, though, are clear and loud. There was that right pan cymbal during one of the sections I pointed out, and it's just way up there in the mix. You can just hear it above everything. It almost screams out. I probably could have taken just a little bit less volume on it and would have been fine. But the rest of the cymbals are clearly heard all the time. The toms, there's some really neat tom runs in here. But the snare and the bass were just super quiet there at the end. Interesting decision. I know it's very easy, given how loud the snare and the toms can, or the snare and the bass kit can be, and how frequently they're being played, how quickly they're being played, and that speed is going to bring velocity, which is going to bring volume to the table. it's probably very easy to overtune those two parts of the drum kit to where they're too loud for something like this. And you got to balance it as well if you're trying to achieve that black metal drum sound. But I think given how clear everything else was, those two aspects of the drums could have been bumped up a little bit. But I don't know, maybe not. Maybe just that muffled, muddy sound in the back. The back of the center channel is exactly what they wanted. I don't think it was distracting to have it. It was just something I noticed at the end. It was like, oh, that's different. It wasn't a bad thing. So maybe it kind of works. And because I'm familiar with black metal, my brain injects those elements into it anyways. Huh. That'd be kind of neat. Um, I think that's it. Like I can talk about some of the riffs and all, but I don't think I have anything meaningful to add to them. It'd just be about expanding on how they contribute to my understanding of black metal, the 16th note strumming on these slower ideas, which you kind of touched on already. I thought there was a section in the middle. Oh, we had our atmospheric middle section, which is neat. We shifted away from the 16th notes to actually just play these suspended tones, and we got to explore them that way. So I enjoyed that. That's something we've heard in a couple black metal. You know what's interesting though is when it comes up in other black metal songs, I'm like, thank you, I needed that. So now I can hear the note relationships without all those attacks and fuzziness. And here I didn't. It was a nice release from all that tension that we have in our faster sections, but I didn't need it to hear the chords, the note relationships, what the what our guitars were doing. This is this is what I'm talking about. This is undeniably black metal, but without any of the problems I have with black metal sound. Yeah, so let's hit some lyrics here. We'll see what's going on there and wrap this video up. I was not wrong about the vocabulary. Let me see if I can find. As willfully blindfolded eyes might give weight to the paradox, some would do well contemplating the faceless and shapeless state of equilibrium. It's not words that go over my head. He's not really like pulling out a thesaurus to craft these lyrics. They are, just really good words given the sentence, and they flow very nicely. They're perfectly selected. But they are a bit more complex than we typically hear in lyrics. I like it. It's got a specific quality to it all. This is a word I don't know though. To perpetuate the waters transpicious. Transpicious and shallow. I don't know what transpicious is. Time to learn a new word. It'll be my. Oh man, I love when I learn a new word and I love the definition of it or the way that it sounds, and I just overutilize it. And then people get mad at me, but that's how it gets into my vocabulary. Clearly seen through. So transpicious is another word for translucent, transparent. Sorry, translucent is halfway. Clearly seen or understood. Is that transparent? Is that is that transpicious? Hmm. I don't quite like that word as much. Might be something I keep in my pocket, but I think I'm going to stick with transparent. Anyways, I don't know what's going on here. There's unrest. The opening, I think, is quite clear on the ideology of what the song is about. It says the fathoms of truth are where darkness is deep and triumphant over ideal and intellect. Mesmerizing, paralyzing spirals of fear, they become relief, spirit, and belief. Skulls ascend high on heaven's eye. Death will receive, drowning pride and grief. Birth will come, and tears will dry. So basically says that the truth that people should be seeking is not one that is going to be founded on ideals or intelligence. The truth is where the darkest is, or where darkness is the darkest. Right? So the truth is in these undeniable areas that we don't explore. And we're going to use that to overcome everything else and give way for a better future. It says, births will come and tears will dry. Now, the rest of this begins to move into areas that go a little above my head. But in the end, says that I will be crowned and enthroned, made out of the remains of 1 million destroyed personas. So I'm going to kill 1 million people. Take this crown and become the Omega, become the end. Which is interesting, because I understand the opening stanza to be the beginning of a new era. It sounds like he's the start, the beginning, not the end. But yeah, there's going to be, like I said, there's unrest, there is contempt in here, there is just a real upset at the current state of things and a want to change it to rule and see things in their image rather than the status quo of the current. It makes me think of, again, the imagery, the horns, the whole Christian thing. It makes me think that this is told through the eyes of Satan attacking God and going through this angelic war. But I'm not entirely sure. But it's really well written. Those are my thoughts on Shammash's Ego Sum Omega. What do you think, though? Anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to it? Anything that you'd like to correct me on? Let me know down in the comments. Above the comment section is a description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. It has links for everything related to the channel. You can find my music, you can find the community Discord server, you can find ways to support the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. All right, we have a special selection coming up. Otherwise, I'll see you all tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC. We're going to wrap this week up. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.